Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all of you. And maybe as you journey to the theater to see the new Star Wars movie, you have came to think, what Star Wars games are there out there right now? And obviously we had a single player one released recently, but there's been this huge resurgence in Star Wars Battlefront 2. That's right, a game that released in 2017 was a massive disaster at launch, has seen this resurgence to the point where major channels, even like IGN, are re-reviewing the game just recently, this month, in 2019, because it overcame so much adversity and so much change to become what actually is a pretty solid shooter. Now, going into 2020, though, I think that Battlefront 2 points out a common problem that I'm seeing in more and more games lately, and a reason why I don't see myself necessarily buying a lot of brand new games in 2020, and I really didn't this year either. Besides some for the Nintendo Switch, I bought Kingdom Hearts 3 and The Division 2, both of them not even at full price, so I didn't really get into buying too many new games this year, and I've kind of been playing through older games, a sort of back catalog, if you will, and games that I was buying pretty cheap at GameStop or on eBay. Now, the reason why I say that Battlefront 2 has created a problem, or really not created it, but brought to light this problem, that current games obviously launch unfinished and in a not so adequate state. You basically are paying $60 to be one of the first people to try a game that oftentimes is not finished, oftentimes is not well balanced, and maybe has additional paywalls that you have to fight through, and it's only because of fan outcry like we saw at Battlefront 2 that these things often get taken away, and you see this healthier player base become developed like you have right now at Battlefront 2. But there are other games that never see this transition. I think of games like Anthem, where unfortunately if you paid $60 for that mess right away, you were looking at it months later and it was selling for $5 like it is right now, because they simply cannot get people to purchase it. Anytime a major AAA multiplayer focused game is launched, I think people need to take a step back and they need to say, is this a game that I'm really going to be able to play for more than a week or a month? Because once the player base is not there, once the player base has moved on, the game is really in trouble. I mean, it's in shambles. Now, the fortunate thing for Star Wars Battlefront 2 is they actually went ahead and they fixed the game. They removed the loot boxes. They continued to add free content. They really did everything that they possibly could have done to draw people in to play this game, outside of just straight up giving away the game for free on Games with Gold or PlayStation Plus or something like that. I mean, they were selling this last year when I purchased it digitally for like $6. And even right now, in the midst of its kind of resurgence, it's selling for like $12.50 on the Xbox store. It's incredible how discounted the game is and how much value you're getting out of that just because there's so much content in the game. But unfortunately, many games don't go through this resurgent state. Games like Anthem, again, they just sit there and the developers don't have a desire to improve the game because the game isn't selling. The game is getting bashed. Its name is being ran through the ground, and they don't have a desire to improve the game in the way that DICE has. And you have to commend DICE for the job that they've done in kind of restoring the stock of the Star Wars IP in video games, because I think that the most recent Star Wars game, the single-player one, would not have sold as well had Battlefront 2 not have had the turnaround that it did. Now, it also helped, obviously, that it was a single-player game, so it was less likely you would run into loot box issues. But nonetheless, I think that had Battlefront 2 have continued down this path of being a dead game, I think that we would have seen the future Star Wars titles, as far as video games go, have their reputations be highly damaged. But here's the deal. We are entering the end of a console generation. We have new systems coming out next holiday season. And ultimately, this probably leads to the conclusion that there will be 4 console games. You have games coming out on both Xbox platforms, both PlayStation platforms, and potentially maybe the Nintendo Switch as well. So 4 or 5 consoles being covered by the games that are in this period. You know what games I'm talking about. Last generation we had, Call of Duty Ghosts coming out on multi-platforms, Watch Dogs coming out on multi-platforms. The big AAA games that kind of get into this era where they're between generations seem like they come out on so many systems, And what happens when you have that issue is now the player base is split. You got people playing it on, next gen, you get people playing it on last gen, and then even between Xbox and PlayStation, we're probably not going to see connected servers for those different generations of games. It'd be awesome if we did, but it's not something that I expect to see. I expect them to have 2 different UPCs and ultimately have different matchmaking systems, because this games may have additional features in the next generation versions. We just don't know yet. So be very careful here as 2020 comes around, even 2021 if you're still playing the Xbox One or the PS4 then, that you don't get stuck with a game that's multiplayer focused and has just a tiny or quickly fading player base, because I expect this problem to only continue as we introduce more copies of the same game as it hits multiple platforms and the player base gets even more split in an era where everybody wants, like Fortnite is doing, to bring all of the consoles together, and we just haven't seen that in a widespread nature yet. And I don't think that next generation is going to be the time necessarily when we do, but the sooner that happens, the better. Thanks for watching. I'm Bailey, and I'll see you in the next video.